I was standing in my wedding dress when my own family demanded $8,400, then called me ungrateful and unstable when I said no, like I was the problem. But they had no idea I had already moved the money where they could not touch it, and by the time federal agents showed up at their office at 6:42 a.m., everything they built started coming apart piece by piece. What they thought was control turned into a quiet kind of revenge they never saw coming, and by the end of it, someone was going to prison. My name is Daniel, and this is the moment I stopped being the daughter they could use. Chapter 1. The Empty Front Row. 3 rows at my wedding were empty. Not late, not running behind, empty. I stood at the start of the aisle and let myself take it in, slowly, like I was assessing something that needed to be understood before I moved. The music kept playing, soft and polished, but it felt distant, like it belonged to someone else's day. Guests turned toward me, smiling, waiting, but those front rows, the ones meant for my family, stayed untouched. No father, no mother, no younger brother. I felt something settle in my chest, not sharp, not sudden, just a quiet confirmation of something I had not wanted to name. They did not miss this. They chose not to come. I started walking. Each step was steady, controlled. I had trained for that kind of control. Years in the Navy had taught me how to move through pressure without letting it show, how to keep everything contained even when things shifted underneath me. I leaned on that now, on muscle memory more than anything else. Daniel stood at the end of the aisle, watching me. He did not look confused. He did not glance toward the empty seats. He just held his ground, calm, like he had already decided this moment was not going to break us. When I reached him, he leaned in slightly, close enough that no one else could hear. "You made it," he said quietly. I nodded, even though my throat felt tight. Yeah, I did. We went through the ceremony the way people do. Vows, rings, a few soft laughs when something almost slipped out of place. People clapped. Someone in the back let out a cheer that felt a little too loud, like they were trying to fill a space no one wanted to acknowledge. No one said anything about the empty seats, but everyone saw them. Afterward, while guests moved into the reception space, a woman in a navy blazer approached me. Lauren, the planner. She kept her voice low, careful. "I tried reaching your family earlier," she said, "just to confirm arrival. It went straight to voicemail." I nodded once. "They did not respond at all?" she added. "No," I said. "Nothing." She gave me a look that was meant to be reassuring, but it carried something else too, a kind of quiet understanding. When she walked away, I stood there for a second longer than I should have. This was not an accident. People do not disappear like that without a reason. Daniel found me a moment later and rested his hand against my back. He did not ask questions. He did not try to fix anything. He just stayed there, steady, like an anchor I did not have to earn. We moved through the reception together. I smiled when I needed to, thanked people, let conversations pass without really taking them in. I knew how to do this. I knew how to keep everything in place, how to present exactly what was expected. But underneath it, something else was forming. By the time we left, the air outside felt cooler than it should have. The drive home was quiet. Streetlights slid across the windshield in slow, repeating patterns. Daniel reached over and took my hand. "You do not have to figure this out tonight," he said. I kept my eyes on the road ahead. "I think I already understand more than I want to," I said. He did not push me to explain. That was one of the things I trusted most about him. When we got home, I changed slowly, careful with the dress, even though I did not feel careful inside. I draped it on a chair and stood there for a moment, looking at it. It did not feel like mine anymore. I went to bed and lay on my back, staring up at the ceiling. Daniel's breathing evened out beside me, steady and calm. And then, like it always did when things went quiet, my father's voice came back. Family comes first. He had said it my entire life, not as advice, as a rule. But there was always something underneath it, something that shaped what it really meant. Only if you don't embarrass it. I let out a slow breath and closed my eyes for a second, then opened them again. I thought about the last time I saw him before the wedding, the way his expression had shifted when I told him I was not changing anything, not scaling things down, not adjusting my plans to make it easier for anyone else. "You are making this harder than it needs to be," he had said. At the time, I thought he meant logistics. Now it sounded different. I turned my head slightly, looking toward the window, then back at the ceiling. This felt less like absence and more like something else, something intentional, something closer to punishment. I thought about growing up in that house, about how things always tilted in Liam's direction. If he messed up, it was stress, bad luck, someone else's fault. If I succeeded, it was expected. If I pushed back, it was a problem. I learned early how to adjust, how to stay just inside the line that kept things calm. I learned how to earn approval in small, careful ways, but it was never really mine. I had spent years trying to be enough in a system that was not built for me to win, and maybe tonight was their way of reminding me of that. I swallowed and stared up into the dark. They did not just skip my wedding. They made a choice about where I stood, and choices like that don't stay quiet. They lead somewhere. I could feel it now, clear and steady, settling in where the confusion had been earlier. This was not over. If anything, this was the first move, and if they thought silence would break me, they did not know me at all. Chapter 2. $8,400. 3 months went by without a single word from them. No calls, no texts, nothing that even tried to pretend we were still a family. Then my phone buzzed on a Tuesday afternoon. I almost ignored it. I had been training myself not to react every time their names showed up, but something in me still looked. It was my father. I opened the message. 8,400, Liam's wedding. We need to keep things respectable. I read it once, then again. Slower. Not a hello, not a question, not even a fake attempt at kindness. Just a number and a quiet command. I leaned back in my chair and let out a breath I did not realize I had been holding. Respectable. That word sat wrong in my chest. This was not about helping Liam. It was not about family. It was about image, about making sure no one saw what had already been broken. It felt like betrayal, just dressed up as responsibility. I stared at the screen for a few more seconds, then hit call. Liam picked up. "Hey," he said, casual, like we had talked yesterday. I let the silence hang for a moment. "You want to explain why Dad thinks I am covering your wedding?" I asked. There was a pause, then a sigh. "Look," he said, "I thought he already talked to you." "He did. That is not the point." Another pause. "Dad said you would handle it," he said, like it was obvious. Handle it. That word again. "You did not think to call me after my wedding?" I said. His voice shifted, just slightly. "Things were busy," he replied. "You know how it is." I almost laughed. "No," I said quietly, "I do not." Silence stretched between us. Then he said, "So are you sending it or not?" That was it. No apology, no acknowledgement, just expectation. I ended the call without answering. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at my reflection in the dark edge of my screen. This was not a misunderstanding. This was control. I opened my banking app. The balance stared back at me, steady, built from years of making sure I would never have to depend on anyone who treated me like an afterthought. I could send the money. It would not even hurt. But that was not the point. They were not asking. They were manipulating. I typed in the amount. $1. I added a note. Best wishes. Then I sent it. A second later, I blocked his number. My hands were steady. That surprised me. 10 minutes later, Daniel called. I picked up on the first ring. "Your dad just called me," he said. Of course he did. What did he say? that you're being childish, that you're embarrassing the family. I closed my eyes for a second. And what did you tell him? He did not hesitate. I told him you are setting boundaries. Something in my chest loosened. Thank you, I said. He exhaled softly. Are you okay? I thought about it. I'm getting there, I said. It was the closest thing to the truth. The next morning, it started. My mom texted first. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I stared at the message, then set my phone down without replying. An hour later, my aunt called. I answered. Do you know what your father is dealing with right now? She asked. No, I said. Why don't you tell me?
He is trying to protect the family, she said, and you are making it worse by not sending money, by refusing to do your part. My part? I ended the call soon after, but it did not stop. Another relative texted, people are talking. Another call, your father is under pressure. Another message, you are overreacting. I sat there, phone in my hand, and felt something shift. How many people had he already called? How long had he been building this? This was not just pressure. This was a coordinated narrative. They were turning me into the problem, the difficult one, the ungrateful one, the reason things were falling apart. I was no longer the daughter who had been left standing in front of empty chairs. I was the one who ruined the story. I put my phone face down and forced myself back into work. Numbers, schedules, timelines, things that made sense. It worked, for a while, until Rachel appeared at my door. Do you have a minute? She asked. Her voice was calm, but there was something careful underneath it. I nodded. She stepped inside and closed the door. I do not think this is a big issue yet, she said, but I need you to be aware. My focus sharpened instantly. Aware of what? Your father reached out, she said. Not directly to leadership, but close enough that it got noticed. My stomach tightened. What exactly did he say? She hesitated. He suggested you might be dealing with personal instability, that it could affect your judgment. I let out a quiet breath. Of course he did. And people believe that? Not exactly, she said, but it puts you on the radar. On the radar. That was all it took? If this escalates, she added carefully, HR may need to get involved. There it was. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough to make it real. I nodded slowly. Thank you for telling me, I said. After she left, I sat there, hands still on the desk, staring at nothing. This was not about money anymore. This was escalation. Pressure from every direction, family, reputation, work. He did not need to prove anything. He just needed to make people question me. I picked up my phone and looked at the blocked contact list. His name was there, quiet, contained. For now. I leaned back and let the silence settle around me. They were not trying to fix anything. They were not trying to understand. They were trying to control the story. And if that did not work, they would keep pushing, harder, smarter, until something broke. And for the first time, I understood. It was not the family they were trying to hold together. It was me they were trying to break. Chapter 3. The story they were selling. Something shifted after that realization, and it did not feel temporary. The pressure did not just stay the same, it evolved. It got quieter, more precise, harder to point at. At work, things started moving around me in ways I could not fully explain. A meeting I had been leading for weeks suddenly changed hands. An update I normally would have been looped into came through after decisions were already made. Nothing obvious, nothing you could call out, just enough to make you question your footing. I found Rachel near the break room later that afternoon. Tell me the truth, I said. How bad is this getting? She looked at me for a second before answering. It is not official, she said, but there is concern. That word again. Concern. In our world, concern did not need to be proven, it just needed to exist. Because of him?
I asked. She nodded. He is being careful. He is not making accusations, just asking questions in the right places. I let out a slow breath. That is worse. She did not disagree. That night, I sat on my couch with my laptop open, the city noise faint in the background, trying to think clearly through everything that had happened. This was not random. It was planned. He was not reacting. He was building something. And if he was putting this much effort into it, then there had to be something he was protecting. I started looking into Liam, not in a dramatic way, just small things at first. Old emails, shared accounts, anything that had crossed my path before. It felt strange, digging like that, but I could not ignore the instinct anymore. Then I found it. An email thread buried deep in a chain that should have meant nothing. A balance, $42,000. Overdue notices, final warnings. I read it twice to make sure I was not misunderstanding. I was not. I leaned back, staring at the screen. Liam was not just careless, he was desperate. And this wedding was not what they said it was. It was not a celebration, it was a cover. Suddenly, everything made sense. The urgency, the pressure, the way my father had skipped every step that would normally exist between family members and gone straight to demand. This was not about helping, this was about control. And underneath it, something else. This was revenge, just quieter than I expected. I picked up my phone and called my mother. She answered after a few rings. Hello? Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Silence. Then, tell you what? I kept my voice steady. About Liam, about the debt, about why this is really happening. A long pause followed. Your father is trying to fix things, she said finally. I felt the tension settle in my chest. By doing what? I asked. By dragging me into it? No answer. By going behind my back? By making people question me at work? Her voice dropped. You're making this bigger than it needs to be. I almost smiled. No, I said quietly. You're just refusing to say it out loud. She said nothing. That was enough. You knew, I said. Another silence. Then, barely above a whisper, I am trying to keep the peace. I closed my eyes. There is no peace, I said. There's just you standing still while he does this. She did not argue. She did not deny it. She just stayed quiet. That told me everything. I ended the call and sat there for a long time, phone still in my hand. The betrayal was not loud. It was quiet. It was knowing something was wrong and choosing not to step in. That night, I opened my laptop again and started writing an email to my father. I did not hold anything back. I wrote about the wedding, about the empty seats, about the message, about the way he had tried to pull me back into something I had already walked away from. I told him I knew about Liam. I told him I knew this was not about respect or family. I told him I was done being controlled. The words came fast, sharper than I expected. By the time I finished, my hands were tense, my chest tight. I read it back. It was honest, it was direct, it was exactly what he wanted. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over send. This was the moment. This was where he expected me to react. I could feel it, the pull to answer, to push back, to make him hear me. Then something in me stopped. If I sent that email, I would be stepping right into it. This was not just control, this was manipulation, and he was waiting for me to prove it would work. I closed the laptop. The urge to send it stayed with me for a long time, sitting just under the surface, but I didn't act on it. A week later, a letter arrived. I recognized his handwriting immediately. I opened it at the kitchen counter. The words were exactly what I expected. Selfish, ungrateful, disappointment. Each sentence measured, controlled, designed to land without raising his voice. It wasn't anger, it was strategy. I read it once, then again. There was no apology, no explanation, just judgment. I folded the letter and set it aside. No reaction. No response. For the first time, I felt something different. Not anger. Clarity. This was not about money. It had never been. This was about him losing control. About me stepping outside a system he had built and refusing to step back in. I leaned against the counter, staring at the letter. I almost answered him. I almost gave him exactly what he needed. That was the trap. Not the demand, not the pressure, the reaction. I picked up the letter and slid it into a drawer. Out of sight, but not forgotten. Because now I could see it clearly. He was not trying to solve anything. He was trying to pull me back into a role, one where I reacted, where I defended, where I stayed predictable. And if I stepped into that for even a second, I would lose. I stood there in the quiet, the city humming outside the window. For the first time, the fear settled in properly. This could cost me everything, my job, my reputation, everything I had built. But underneath that fear, something else was taking shape. He wasn't just controlling the situation, he was planning. And the worst part was, he was counting on me to react.
Chapter 4. The day he brought the police. I did not have to wait long. The knock came early, sharp enough to carry through the walls, the kind of sound that made people look up even if it was not their door. Daniel glanced toward me from the kitchen. "You expecting someone?" I shook my head. "No." The knock came again, louder this time, measured, like whoever stood outside wanted the whole street to hear it. I walked to the door and opened it. My father stood there, posture straight, expression controlled. Behind him were 2 police officers. Across the street, a neighbor stood with a phone raised, recording. Of course, he had not just come to confront me, he had come to perform. "Officers," my father said, his tone calm, almost rehearsed. "My daughter has been withholding family funds." I looked at him, then at the officers. I did not answer right away. I wanted him to sit in what he had just said. One of the officers stepped forward. "Ma'am, I am Officer Miller," he said. "We just need to understand what is going on." Daniel moved beside me, close enough that I could feel the steadiness in him. "What exactly is the issue?" he asked. My father did not hesitate. "She is refusing to release money that belongs to the family," he said. "Funds intended for my son's wedding." There it was again. The same story, the same control. Only now it had an audience. I stepped back and opened the door wider. "You should come in," I said. The officers exchanged a glance, then stepped inside. My father followed. He always did. The neighbor did not move. The phone stayed up, recording everything. I closed the door behind us and walked to the table. The room felt too quiet, like something was about to break but had not yet. Officer Miller looked at me. "Can you explain your side?" he said. I nodded once. "Yes." I opened my laptop, my hands steady, and pulled up my account. "This is my account," I said, turning the screen slightly. "Personal, individual. There are no shared funds." I clicked through transactions, statements, everything clean, documented, impossible to misread. "There has never been a family fund," I added. "Not here, not anywhere under my control." The officer leaned in, scanning the screen. His partner stayed back, watching me, watching my father. My father shifted his weight. "That is not the full picture," he said, his voice tightening just a little. "There are expectations, responsibilities." I looked at him. "No," I said quietly, "there are assumptions." The room went still. Officer Miller straightened and turned to him. "Sir, this appears to be a civil matter." For a split second, my father's control slipped. It was small, almost invisible, but I saw it. "This is my family," he said, his voice rising just enough to feel it. "This is not just civil." "It is not criminal," the officer replied, calm, firm.
That landed harder than anything else. Outside, through the window, I saw movement. The neighbor had stepped closer, the phone still up, still recording. I could already see it spreading, replayed from different angles, passed from one person to another. My father noticed it too. His eyes flicked toward the window, then back to me. For the first time, he looked uncertain. "You are making this worse than it needs to be," he said, trying to pull the moment back under control. I held his gaze. "You came here with the police," I said. My voice did not rise. It did not need to. "You did not come to my wedding." Silence. It stretched, heavy and unavoidable. No one moved. No one spoke. And in that silence, everything shifted. The story he had been building, the one he had been feeding to everyone else, it didn't work here. Not in this room. Not in front of witnesses. Not on camera. Officer Miller cleared his throat. "Unless there's anything else," he said, "we're going to step out." He glanced at me. "You handled that right." I nodded. "Thank you." The officers moved toward the door. Daniel opened it for them. As they stepped outside, the neighbor lowered the phone slightly, but not enough to stop recording. Still watching. Still capturing. The door closed again. The room felt different now, quieter, but heavier. My father stood there for a moment, not moving. For the first time, he didn't have anything prepared. No explanation, no narrative, just silence. He looked at me, really looked this time, like he was trying to understand something that had shifted beyond his control. Then his expression hardened again. Not the same as before, not as certain. "You should not have done this," he said, his voice low. I almost smiled. I did not call the police. That landed. He had no response. Daniel stepped forward slightly. "You should leave," he said. My father did not argue. He just turned and walked out. The door closed behind him. And just like that, it was over. Or at least that part of it was. I stood there for a second, letting the quiet settle. Daniel let out a breath. "That was something," he said. I nodded. "Yeah." I walked to the window. My father was already halfway down the street. The neighbor was still outside, talking to someone, showing the video. It was already moving. I could feel it. The shift. This was not just defense. This was the beginning of something else. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. This was revenge, and it didn't need to be loud. My phone buzzed on the table, then again, then again. Messages, names I recognized, some I didn't. I didn't open them, not yet. I didn't need to. I already knew. The story was no longer his. It was out there now, messy, uncontrolled, visible. I stepped back from the window and looked at the room, at the table, at the laptop still open. Everything was the same and completely different. For weeks, he had been controlling the narrative, shaping it, guiding it, making sure it moved the way he wanted. Now, he couldn't. Now it was bigger than him, bigger than me. And for the first time, he had no control over what happened next. Chapter 5. What Remains. 3 months passed, and the noise around everything began to fade. Not disappear, just soften into something quieter, something people talked about in lower voices. The video never exploded online. It did not need to. It moved the way most real stories do, from one person to another, across conversations, across rooms where my name was said a little differently than before. Not as a problem, not as unstable, just different. Liam postponed the wedding. No announcement, no explanation, just a quiet shift that people noticed. Someone asked a question, someone else filled in a guess, then another version followed. Money issues, timing, stress. But underneath all of that, the truth was starting to show through. Not all at once, just enough. I heard about it from someone who still had ties to my father's company. They lost a client, she told me, a big one. I sat back, listening. It was not loud, no scandal, no headlines, but you could feel it. Something was off. That was how it happened. Not collapse, erosion. The kind that builds quietly until people start stepping back without saying why. I did not ask for details. I did not reach out. I did not need to. For the first time, I was not trying to fix anything. I was just watching. One afternoon, my phone rang. I stared at the screen before answering. My mother. I let it ring twice before picking up. Hello? There was a pause. Then her voice, softer than I remembered. I'm sorry. No explanation, no long speech, just that. I did not respond right away. I let the silence stretch, letting her sit in it. You knew, I said finally. It was not a question. Another pause. Yes. That was enough. No excuses, no deflection, just the truth. I thought staying out of it would help, she said quietly. I thought it would pass if I did not get involved. I closed my eyes. It did not, I said. I know. Her voice wavered, just slightly. I should have said something. Yeah, you should have. We did not argue. There was nothing left to argue about. The damage had already settled into place. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time. Not angry, not relieved, just clear. A few weeks later, I saw my father again. It was not planned. We ended up in the same office building, crossing paths in a hallway that felt too small for both of us. He stopped when he saw me. So did I. For a second, neither of us spoke. He looked older, not by much, but enough to notice. I did not expect things to go this way, he said. His voice was quieter than I had ever heard it. I considered that. Neither did I, on my wedding day. The words landed without force, no anger, just distance. He nodded once like he understood something too late. I was trying to fix things, he said. I know. A long pause. Then he asked if there was anything left to fix. I thought about it, about everything that had happened, about everything that had not. No, I said. It was not harsh, it was not emotional, it was just true. He held my gaze for a second longer, then nodded again, this time slower. Then he walked away, and I let him. That was the part that mattered. I did not follow, I did not call after him, I did not try to pull anything back together. On the drive home, Daniel glanced at me. You okay? He asked. Yeah. He waited a moment. Do you still want a relationship with them? I looked out the window, watching the city move past in a blur of light and motion. I wanted one, I said after a while, for years. I paused. But I do not need one anymore. Saying it out loud felt different, not like losing something, like putting something down that I had been carrying for too long. Daniel nodded. He did not push. He did not ask anything else. That was one of the things I had learned to recognize, the difference between someone who listens and someone who waits to respond. That night, I sat alone in the living room. The quiet felt unfamiliar at first, then steady. I thought about everything: the wedding, the silence, the message, the door, the police, all of it. And I realized something that had been there all along. I did not lose my family that day. I had lost them long before that. I just kept trying to hold on. This was not the revenge I imagined. There was no moment where everything collapsed, no single point where it all broke. But it still mattered, because he lost control and I gained mine. That was the shift. I was not the daughter he could manage anymore. I was not part of the system he had built. I was outside of it. And for the first time, that did not feel like rejection. It felt like freedom. You spend years thinking love means staying even when it hurts more than it heals. You tell yourself loyalty means keeping quiet and holding everything together. You convince yourself that family means enduring things that slowly wear you down. I used to believe all of that. It felt normal because it was all I knew. But the truth is, some things only change when you stop pretending they're fine. It didn't take a dramatic moment to walk away. It just took one decision I had been avoiding for years. And once I made it, everything else followed. I leaned back and let the silence settle. No pressure, no expectation, no voice telling me what I owed. Just space. And it felt earned. If you were in my place, what would you have done? Would you have sent the $8,400? Or would you have done what I did? Would you have held on to the family you were given or chosen yourself for the first time? If this story meant something to you, stay with me, share your thoughts below, and follow along for more stories that might feel a little closer to your own.